Hi, Laura.
Hi Greg, how you doing?
Good.
So Neil, did Bozeman get the weather? Did you guys get snow?
Are you talking to me? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Neil.
Oh, Neil.
We got it yesterday and the night before, ready
Okay.
for kind of like the start of the week.
Mhm.
But now it's just been that mixture of cloudy, sunny, and snow and ice. the,
Yep.
the typical snow plowing nightmare as to which do you plan for. We do have the indoor training facility being built right out our back door behind the stadium.
Oh,
And so it's the size of a football field, but indoors, and a running track. And they're trying to do the roof. So they're working at a whatever 30-degree angle on sheet metal with snow and ice. They don't look happy.
yeah, I can't imagine that it's a great day to be outside. Yeah.
Uh, and Laura, I don't know if you downloaded a more recent copy of what we were working on, but I did, of course, add one more slide
Okay. I did not.
early.
I just had the one from yesterday. Okay.
Okay. And I have a PowerPoint and PDF downloaded to present from.
Okay.
But if it's number 5, I just added a blank storyboard, so it wasn't too distracting to say this is what the storyboards look like versus one full of contextual information.
I will go pull that now just in case.
And I'll probably just present from the PDF.
Okay.
Well, we're still waiting on a couple folks. So Dave Gray in New Hampshire, he's dealing with something within his agency, and I just don't know how much he'll be able to spend time on this, except for a little bit of time each day. So I don't know that we can count on him, especially anything other than like if we had well, I don't even have meetings that early because of our West Coast partners, but yeah, hopefully we'll get some response from him at some point. But
So part of the reason
ahead.
we set up the Excel file, Greg, was we're going to be presenting a lot today. And so the intention was for folks to kind of think about it and provide feedback, but also for those who could not attend. So,
Yeah.
We could send it to him specifically and say at your convenience, go through the presentation, provide your feedback. But I know he was very vocal in past meetings, so I definitely want to capture his thoughts.
Yeah, I get it. I can try and reach out to him maybe even early tomorrow, see if I can catch him in the morning, because that's about the only time he's available these days. So, and just kind of let him know, because you're right, he's a project champion on this, and he's a project chair on this, and he's very vocal about it. So, all right, so we're 3 minutes after, and we might have as much as we're going to get. Well, it is a long meeting anyway, so we should probably just go ahead and get into it. So I'll put myself on mute and turn off my camera.
Okay, thanks, Greg. So thanks for everyone who was able to make the meeting. Let's see, Ty from IDT will be here in 30 minutes. Okay, perfect, thanks. So the goal of this meeting is to present our initial kind of draft PSAs. And it's a little different than what we had outlined in the proposal. And that in part is because the first chunk of creativity went towards development of the partnership and winter road safety logo, theme, branding. So what we have for you today, so I guess, Neil, you can go to the next slide, if you don't mind. Thanks. Okay, so what we have overall for the task objectives, kind of trying to fit this within the framework of the proposal, was that we were going to create a single theme PSA package. What we have instead, because of the feedback from our last meeting, is we have 3 early cut, rough cut draft versions of what a PSA package might look like. So that includes kind of the visual concepts, the wording concepts, any slogans or taglines that might be associated with that, trivia questions to reinforce the concept, and then CMS, VMS, whatever term you use, messaging that could be associated with it. So we have a lot to present today, and so this is going to be a very creative meeting, and we really want a lot of your feedback. So I'll go into that in a second, but the objective of this is for us to present these ideas and get active feedback from you folks. And sometimes it's just your initial reaction. I like this, I don't like this. That wording doesn't ring true to me, things like that. So we want your feedback as much as we possibly can. The goal of this meeting and collecting as much feedback from you folks as possible is to decide on, are any of these PSA theme packages ideas that you like and you want us to fully develop into the final version. And so we have provided for you an Excel file, and I'm gonna, Neil, do you have that Excel file up? Because I might share the Excel file with folks really quick.
I don't, so
okay.
I'll just stop sharing. Okay,
perfect. So I'll just share with you the Excel file. It's very simple. It's nothing fancy. But this is structured just for this meeting. If we could get your name or the state you're from, just so we know who we're getting feedback from. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through each PSA theme. So each PSA theme will have a slide number. So for example, slide 4. And then within that, there will be like an image number, which I'll show you next. And you can indicate that here. And then you can provide feedbacks on the visuals, on the text. You can write whatever you want in here. You can modify this. This is just for us to get as much feedback as possible from you guys. So everyone should have that Excel file. It was sent to you this morning by Greg. So thank you, Greg. And when we conclude the meeting, when we send out the meeting notes, we will send this Excel file as well as a PDF version of the presentation so you can go through it in case this is overwhelming. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'll let Neil go back to the presentation. If you don't mind sharing that again, Neil. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. Okay, so based on what we had presented from the PSA library and then in the partnership meeting, We moved forward with your guidance with the general structure theme of this PSA material being partnerships and winter road safety. We were, I guess, told to move forward with the concept of ideas, safe winter driving. That's what we talked about in our last meeting. So what we have for you today are a whole bunch of different visual PSA options for stopping distance, clearing off your car, and don't crowd the plow, which is merged with the concept of work zone in motion. And that's building off the existing don't crowd the plow work. So it's not taking it as is, it's totally separate ideas to help move that theme forward. So you can see here, each of the different PSA theme topics have multiple ideas. So that's why we wanted the long meeting. So Neil, you can go to the next slide. And I'm going to hand it over to Neil now and let him talk through the creative process and kind of where we have ended up.
Hi, folks. So just to give you a general approach for all of the storyboards that you're about to see, anytime you see text, images, or captures from video and graphics, they will ultimately be animated to the screen. So they'll come in motion onto the screen or be animated while they're on the screen, for the most part, thinking of most effective social media messaging. Graphics typically, for consistency and to some extent simplicity, will be forward facing if it's in a vehicle, or side view with an animated background to convey motion. So this is where you have to use your imagination a little bit. Typically, you sequence the content build so that we're going from simple to more complex, adding information in pretty small or short formats. The video format overall will be the 16:9 widescreen that we're all used to on our phones. We can consider vertical, as is in the case of a lot of social media, but because of our messaging from vehicles and snowplows and things, horizontal does still make more sense. So we'll have to see as that proceeds. We're looking for ways always to minimize the content while providing enough to get the message across without being overwhelming. And I don't know if you can remember back, what we're trying to do in some cases is use the old messaging, like don't crowd the plow, but tie it to the why don't crowd the plow, or give more reasoning behind it. We're increasing awareness of safety concerns while trying to provide a positive framing versus a negative blaming or the shock approach. Here is a simple example of what you're going to be looking at as a storyboard. This has 4 boards on there, and on the boards you will see samples of the screen text and images, videos, or graphics. What you will not see is how the treatment, the visual treatment of the graphics. So that's where you have to use your imagination. As you'll see in the top left, there's the theme and the topic, so that you kind of know where we're at. And then each one is numbered. So there's technically 4 boards on this one screen. With these storyboards, we are doing a storyboard approach because most of the concepts are coming across as a short to very short form video. And so we're sequencing with that. And then if any of these are chosen, then we can move forward into the static graphics of infographics or posters, or just static single image messaging. So the first main topic is clearing off your vehicle. What should be done and why. To some of us, it's kind of a lot of common sense, but just using a positive framing to make people aware of, oh, this is actually is a safety concern. I didn't really realize why. And then it's that sense of responsibility and partnership in safety with other drivers and winter maintenance operations. With each of these, I'll give you a few seconds just to look at it, take in some information. So we're looking for images of people, or going to create images of people and video of people, hopefully in a positive framework, relatively happily cleaning off their cars, but not, being hokey or anything. We're starting with the positive, and then through smiley faces or other devices, convey that sense of concern without going into big descriptions, saying, yes, all of your vehicle is important, so you can see all around, including your mirrors. And, you need to be seen, so get those lights. Are you done yet? Whether we have an image of somebody with a quizzical face looking, so am I done? Am I ready to go? How about the roof, the hood? It's better to leave the snow behind, less spin drift to block others' vision. As a possible add-on, but it's possibly a little bit more of a topic than we want to go into, is it worthwhile as knocking or recommending people knock off those chunks of ice that could prevent damage? We don't want the shock and awe, and just basically that sense of keeping yourself and others safe. If it's that sense of, oh, I don't want to be frowned at as I'm driving along with snow on my car, with ice chunks dropping off, so remove it before you go. And tying in with the branding, the shared responsibility, and the partnership. So, Laura, we didn't really discuss this. Do we want to pause for any time at the end of each one for discussion, or have people write their comments and talk about it later?
Let's do both, if folks are willing to. If anybody has any initial reaction, thoughts, feelings about this, you can write them down or you can say them now, knowing that there are many other clearing off your car ideas still to be presented. Okay, Tom, I see your hand. And you are muted.
Yeah, I'm also slow. A couple slides there. A thought that came to my mind was the fact that you have individuals that are being shown. Is there any sort of an issue with getting clearance to show their image that we want to stay away from, or we can easily get, knowing the people that are in those photos? Just a thought.
That's a good question. And for the purposes of this, if we went ahead with this concept, we would get our own photography, build on some of what we already have. And then depending on the materials, provide files where the agency-specific images could be added if they have them. Or if they have a stock license that they can get stock images, they could add those in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, or are you all typing away in your Excel spreadsheets? So the next one, kind of going on the positive and negative, is most of us clean up our cars before heading out. At least hopefully that's what we see. And so we're starting with positive. There's a lot of images here. You would just see a sequence of images sliding in with the same text. Same kind of images, but then we add a couple to show this is the concern that we have, that maybe some of us aren't doing the part and we're driving out there with cars still covered in snow or ice. And then going back to the positive, showing some video and images of people smiling away, cleaning off their cars. And then depending on how much messaging we want to do at the end, safer for you, safer for others, keeping yourself and others safe, avoiding those concerned looks. So we're looking at internal feelings or external feelings about why we clean our cars off. I don't really want to do it, but I don't want to be frowned at either. So I'm just going to do it anyways. So we can go into, if this is selected, then we can kind of resolve those kind of questions. And again, tying it back to the branding. Questions or comments? I'll move on. Oops. So this one, similar topic, clearing off your car, since we're in that main theme. This one is a little bit about when you do it. So most of us clean up our vehicles before heading out. And so we'll have video of the same kind of things where vehicles are all cleared off. But then when do you do yours? And then some instances where people, because the snow slides across the windshield or they realize they can't see through their mirror, and so they stop to clear off that snow, putting themselves or possibly others at risk. And so again, we're not trying to do the pointing the finger and specifically isolating people, but this is a safety concern. It's what happens sometimes on the roads. So even in a positive framework, pointing out the concern is still considered okay. If there's no immediate comments, I'll move on. This one, again, building on that theme, clearing off the snow, clearing off the vehicle. How much can you see after you've cleared the vehicle? And when you're in a vehicle initially, you maybe can't see anything. And so this one we would do with a combination of video or animation of the snow or ice being cleared off. It would be a pretty basic animation just to get the message across. How much you clear off the snow or ice is how much you can see. And then selectively getting some images. These are just random ones from our stock images of what you may or may not see depending on how much you clear off the vehicle. And so again, revealing most of these subjects, the main subject is in the area that you would initially clear off by default, hopefully. But the idea that if you clear off all your windshields and the side and your mirrors, those are the things that you're going to see. And just going back a little bit, we wouldn't necessarily use all of this messaging on board one. Is it, can you see me now? Can I see you? What am I missing? Clear off the snow, or clear the way to clear the risk of, I'm not saying that one clearly, clear away some of the risk of winter driving. So just again, a simple messaging, if we can add to why we do it.
This is Greg. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, and I apologize if I'm just completely missing the boat here, but 30,000 foot level, maybe explanation for me again. So in some of these examples, we're seeing like four different, like in this case, 4 different images. Are all 4, I mean, assuming these are, you know, that's what we're looking for, are all 4 of these going to be used in a single, is this like a social media post where we got 4 different images sort of in sequence or something? Or is this just a storyboard for a video? Or I'm a little confused. I apologize.
Okay. And thank you for bringing that up because there's maybe others out there confused. So in the introduction, the brief introduction, the focus so far has been this video sequencing. So these are essentially like screen captures of what would be a social media post, as in a video social media post, not just a static post. And so you're seeing not a choice of 1 through 4, and then on this particular one, the next several. You would see this appearing over 10, 15, 20 seconds. Potentially with a voiceover or just the text with the examples. But if you chose this one, then we would look for a way of doing it almost like a cartoon sequence infographic, where you say, or a trivia question, which of these do you think are really appropriate and safe? And, with a question mark after, say, top left, is, do you think this is sufficient? What are you missing if you only clear this portion of your windshield? And so the number 11, if only the left side of the windshield was cleared, you wouldn't see the cyclist on the other side. So it's food for thought as you see these. Like, I like the idea, I can see it as a video, how would you do it as a graphic? And then we move forward with it for that package. Does that give you the?
Yeah, that gives me more. And then, so there's going to be, so if we see this, like right now, we're looking at 9, 10, 11, and 12. That means obviously they're all part of the same video or animation sequence. And then when we go to there's going to be different examples of this for the same topic area, and they'll start over again. So that way we're choosing between this one or this one, or we like aspects of this one and other aspects of that one, whatever the case might be. But that's how we'll know when we're on a different sequence or a different.
So I'm going to flick back.
Yeah.
Doesn't like it when I do this. So clearing off your vehicle. This is one concept of, let's clear off our vehicle, all of it. So if you see in the top left, these are the reasons why we're doing it. And then we've got 4, 8, 12, in this case 16 kind of sequence visuals that would all blend together to make that all one together.
Okay, that's what I was struggling with. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm on board now. I appreciate it.
But as an infographic, just to give you an example, say you're seeing a graphic of one vehicle. Actually, let's use this one, top left, number 9. You see a graphic of one vehicle with bubbles coming off of it saying windshield, all of your windows, mirrors. So just be a static infographic of pointing out and just reminding people all of your vehicle means all of your vehicle, even the roof. So that's where it could be a static graphic. Does that help?
So, okay, so that's another, I guess I am a little confused again. So I understand the sequence of images and how they blend into one video or animation, but are we also how do we know that like 9 could also be a static image? Are we choosing from any one of them to be a static image, or?
That's where we've gone back and forth internally of how far and what do we develop. You could just say, hey, I like that car on an example of that car on number 9, but it could just be a side image of a vehicle, an image that we're not seeing here. If you just say, how about an image with then all of these points around it, just like you've seen infographics where there's a vehicle and then there's separate boxes around it saying, don't forget to have gloves in your car, don't forget to have the snow scraper, don't forget to have a flashlight, you're being prepared for the winter. So that kind of a static infographic. Is that, am I getting closer to? So yeah, we're not providing.
Yeah, I guess so. I just, yeah, I'm still trying to get an overall view. I think one of your first images on the presentation probably is going to be helpful in that, again, we're being shown the sequence of images in order to show us what a video or an animation could look like. But I also, before I go commenting on any one of these images, I just want to make sure I know what you guys are looking for in terms of, we would also like a static image of this or static image of that. And so just to make sure that we have that direction, especially for people that are not a part of this meeting today. And as we're doing this, I'm thinking, I'm glad we're recording this because I'm gonna post it on the members page to go with our slide deck that you're providing us, and of course the spreadsheet again as well, and giving that as much instruction as we can to our folks that are going to be not only part of this meeting, but or not only not a part of this meeting, but also people who are part of this meeting, so that you guys get the best I just want to make sure you guys get the best responses you can. So I might be
Okay.
really slow here missing some of this, and everyone else is totally on board with it. But I would just want to make sure, especially for those aren't here today.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me jump in real quick. So Greg, I think what I didn't do a good job introducing, I think Neil's trying to go back, is what we wanted to do today is just present the concepts to you guys. What the static imagery might look like, or, you know, a one pager versus an animated piece. That is something that we would work towards and develop in tandem with you. But we have, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, we have like 15 ideas to present. And so we didn't want to waste time fully developing things that you guys were going to say,
Yeah.
oh, we don't even like that concept. So really it's more, do you like the idea of, for example, slide 16, where the animation is clearing the windshield and you're seeing more and more? Or do you respond better to the imagery of someone without a cleared out car and like what we call micro shaming? You know, so that's really what we're trying to get out of this meeting. And I will do a better job explaining that in the email with the notes and everything.
Yeah, and I think you're fine. I just, so again, just kind of looking at, this was the slide that exactly I was talking about, that it sort of helps with, or for me, I just need to have this organized so I know how to provide comments and I'm not providing unhelpful comments. And not that I'm one of the ones that should be providing comments, but I might actually, just because we're a little light on committee members, especially with Dave not being able to be a part of this as much. So anyway, just want to make sure. So for stopping distance, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different messages, and we're making comments on each of the messages, both in total, but also within the images within those messages, and trying to give you our thoughts on it in both ways, I guess.
Correct. And then like
Okay.
if there is a concept that you just like don't like for anyone in the meeting, just say that I don't like this one, because that's going to help us get closer to the final selection.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I won't hold this up anymore. I know you guys got a lot to get to.
All right. Yeah, and I'll just try to reiterate. So right now, and we didn't do a very good job of putting these in the same order. So right now we're in clear off your vehicle, and we've done. Are we cleaning off all of it? Are you doing your part? And when do you clear off your vehicle? You know, do you do it after you're on the road? So we've already kind of gone through these. Then we were in the can you see me now, scraping off. So you're seeing a sequence for every one of these, which is the storyboard. We could have just said, oh, let's just create a little kind of static graphic or an infographic for each one. And then if you like it, we'll then sequence it into a video. But what we did, which is a little bit more complicated, is do the video approach first, that then we can consolidate into an infographic. And just to be very clear, you may not, if you say, yes, I want these, but I want them as an infographic, we would maybe not use any of these images that you've already seen. We'd create graphics or images specific. So you're only seeing one component of multiple possible packages. So hopefully we're
and
closer
just as
to
one final clarification. Yeah, one final clarification. If you can go back to that organizational slide from the beginning, please.
I promised Laura I wasn't going to keep flashing through the slides. Sorry.
Yeah.
There we
sorry,
go.
that's my fault. Okay, there we go. So then within, for example, stopping distance, we have 5 different messages. How many of those are within the budget to be able to actually develop? Are we just doing one per, stopping distance gets 1, or is it 2? I can't remember.
So in the original proposal, we said we would develop 4 to 6 different full PSA packages. So what?
So within 4 to 6
total.
within stopping distance? Oh, okay.
No, total.
Yeah,
so
okay.
What we want you guys to do is look at everything we have holistically after the meeting, after you've had a time to kind of take it all in, decide which was your favorite, which ones you want to throw out. And then you can pick one per topic, or you could pick multiple per topic. That is up to you guys. But just know that the budget is 4 to 6 PSA themes. So if they're all on, work zone and motion, that's fine. But it's up to you ultimately as a technical panel to decide which ones we should move forward with.
Okay, so PSA themes, we've got under safe winter driving, we've got stopping distance, clearing off your vehicle, and don't crowd the plow. Each of those is a PSA theme, right? The 3 stopping distance, clear off your vehicle.
Correct.
And such.
But
Those
only
are,
one, we can't develop all, what I mean? So even like you may say, we don't like any of the clear up your vehicle ones. We want a stopping distance, a don't crowd the plow, and let's talk about some of the other ideas that we initially pulled out. So it's up to you guys ultimately as a group to decide which you like. But if we did one for stopping distance, one for clear off your car, and one for work zone in motion, that would be nice and clean and easy, but we don't have to.
Okay. All right. Now I got it again. I'd love to hear if anybody else has got thoughts on any of this, and make sure that I'm like, you guys are all good on this now. I mean, maybe you have been the whole time, and I'm just holding up the process. But I think I much more fully understand what we're doing here, so I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So again, we're still in that clean off your vehicle concept, and just that idea of what can you do in 5 minutes before heading out of the door. Do you hit snooze a couple of times? Do you catch up on the news, play another game level, another coffee? Just scroll a little bit more through the news, hang out with the dogs, snuggle, or do you get out there and clean off your snow and give yourself time to do that? So just what's kind of the use of your time, and then be part of that shared winter driving responsibility and partnership. So just the basic concept of what do you do with your time before heading out, when sometimes we mess around on the morning and then get out and like, oh, geez, I didn't know there was this much snow in my car. Now I'm going to be late for work. So I just scrape off a little bit and head out. This one would probably lend itself more to just a dynamic social media post versus a static infographic. But again, if the concept is liked, then we would develop it. This one is a sense of, as you're driving along, there's a loose ice or snow debris falls off a vehicle or gets kicked up by another vehicle. It can happen when you go through a pothole or something, and suddenly there's an ice chunk flying through the air, and it can potentially crack the windshield. So that's the concept. It could be a static graphic of watch out for ice debris on the road. It might end up on your windshield, or it could be an animated graphic. I think there is one live video out there that somebody posted on social media of this actually happening.
And don't be shy. If you have thoughts or feelings, please share them with the group.
I'll just chime in. I'm connecting more with the all the way off one and the do you see me now? I think the potential for that as an animation is a really interesting idea.
Okay. So I'll move on from this one. Oops. All right. So this one is a little bit more on the why do we clean off the vehicle? simple animation, could be an infographic. As you know, as you move down the graphic, you're seeing more and more reasons, but maybe not conveyed as well with this animation of revealing the text. So we're just revealing the reasons, and those reasons that we're giving within the first few slides, in particular this one, number 6, it may be the law in your state. Yeah, we had lots of discussion back and forth internally on this. The text that we use can be changed pretty easily as we develop, but as we get towards the end, we don't want to keep changing it. But from a graphic perspective, the text could be changed pretty easily. But just again, a simple concept. You come across a Facebook post and you see a windshield wiper going across. Why bother clearing your car? And within a few seconds, you've seen the reasoning. And again, to reiterate, we're building on that campaign partnership. So depending on the development time of each of these, we might say, oh, okay, we do have time available to go through some of these other ideas that were not as high a priority. But that's dependent on how much time is dedicated to each one. With the clear off your vehicle, we did have some other additional text options. Thank you for doing your part. Shared responsibility to get to our destination safely. Keeping people safe to avoid those angry or concerned looks. So this is text that could be used as part of infographics or within the videos or statics. So it doesn't have one particular place it could be used. It just depends on what products we're developing for you. And then the trivia questions that Laura mentioned earlier, these are just other ways that we can treat with a video or a static graphic that gets a question and answer across versus just presenting information.
Yeah, so the theory of the trivia questions that we're kind of bringing forward is they will provide additional information for the PSA. We don't want to overload people with the PSA video or static imagery that goes out. We want to have other options to provide additional information, and the trivia question is a great way to do that. So for example, we could use the windshield wiper graphic and say, what can you do in 5 minutes? And, that's one way to present that as a trivia question, or these could just be trivia questions that are text on the screen, that the answer becomes clear, in the next slide or what have you. So these are all just options we came up with, again, along the theme of trying to stay positive, to reach the most people. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but as you kind of go through the slide deck, read through them, say, I liked question 2 or 4, or I don't like any of these. That's going to help us kind of move forward with this concept. And then Neil, do you want to
a little bit of a mix and match in terms of, I like this, but try it with this application or this graphic. Okay, Laura.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. Sorry. So then the next piece of the package was providing some other messaging options. So we worked with Jamie Sullivan and Natalie, our safety people, and they helped us come up with CMS, VMS, DMS messaging that could potentially be approved and is in the right format and number of characters, using the verbiage wording that kind of matches the concept of clear up your car. So these are just some options. I apologize, we didn't number these. So if in your comments you want to just say, oh, I liked that it shows that there might be a fine associated with not clearing off your car, or the making people save people, you might have to include the wording for that. So I can I'll make a note to add numbering to these slides when I send it out with the notes. But again, these are just to reinforce the idea and give you guys another option of sharing the message that is all tied to the same theme.
And I'll move on. So the next main topic or theme is the stopping distance. So within that whole area where you're going to see different ideas conveying the significant increase in stopping distances due to higher speeds at snowy roads, be winter aware, drive with the conditions and others in mind. So it's that just awareness of a safety concern, and although some of it is common sense, what it really means in that driving scenario, winter driving scenario. And this one, I think we should have probably broken down into more storyboards so you don't see as much information at once. But the idea is comparing stopping distance at two different speeds on dry roads and on snowy roads. So the first scene would be just a car driving along a dry road, so a simple animation at 35 miles an hour. Well, what about at 65 miles an hour? What about those speeds and snow? So you've got the 4 cars cruising along, and the cars themselves aren't moving. It'll be the road in the background, so they all stay on the screen at the same time. And then we apply the brakes, everybody stops, we animate the text, and suddenly we see a whole bunch of information. So just looking at number 5, top left, we're looking at now we've got a stopping distance of 25 yards versus 100 yards for the dry road, different speeds. So it's a lot of information, but we're adding it in incrementally, and the visual will show the difference in distances that the cars have covered. And then we take the time to think about it. Hey, this is what's happened on the dry road. It's gone from 25 to 100 yards. That's 4 times stopping distance. And then what about snowy roads? It's gone from 60 yards to 266 yards. And then we finish off with the final messaging, so that even if this was maybe a little bit much and then maybe want to watch it again because it only takes 30 seconds to watch it or less, then we come up with a couple of statements. Sorry, my mouse keeps giving the hover box. Just to reiterate the branding and whether the generic statement of your stopping distance is going to increase 4 times or more. We would like to get some more specific data so that we can have an accurate, meaningful statement, but it's also generic and easy to understand. So this one's a bit of a heavy lift in terms of how much information you're looking at, but it's still trying to convey that simple concept. And again, this could be done. We have an example as a trivia question, and we could do it as an infographic. It's not just as a video. I'll move on, I think. Okay, this one, a little bit simpler. Just you see several static images or video of driving in snowy conditions. And we'll try to be somewhat generic with mountain, open roads. But basically you see snow, go slow. There'll be an animation of the speedometer going down. With our internal discussions, we opted not to show specific speeds or specific speedometer in the vehicle, because then it's as if we're stating specific speeds of going from 55 to 35, as if that's a specific recommendation. We're leaving it a little bit more generic, just with the direction that if you're in snow, be aware it's a safe thing to do, slow down. And one little question on this one we have, if it's chosen, do we say go slow or drive slow? Or if it's selected, we can decide that later on. This one is similar approach visually, but the focus is on be winter aware. So not just speed, but watch for variable road conditions, be aware of the surrounding vehicles and what's going on. They may be expert drivers, they may be beginner drivers, we don't know. So be aware, appropriate speed for the conditions. When we see patches of ice or other cars skidding, we know we should be slowing down, watch for plows, be winter aware, drive with care. So I may end up regretting these words, but this last, the sea snow goes slow and this be winter aware, they're pretty simple concepts. The video production would be pretty quick, I hope, relatively. And so you could choose a couple of these because they're simple, and then there'd be a couple of social media posts or a couple of graphics. But some of the others obviously would take more development, more time, and so we couldn't produce as many of them.
Okay, so then we have,
Laura,
yeah. So then we have the trivia associated with stopping distance. And again, the concept of the trivia is to reinforce the why or provide additional information. So for example, question 1, what could happen if you don't give your vehicle enough stopping distance? And it provides a list of all the things that could potentially happen to you. Questions about why it takes longer for you to stop in winter. So people understand that. There are other questions about stopping distance, just like that first concept in this theme that Neil presented. So Neil, if you want to actually go to the next slide, one of the ways we could present the trivia, it would be in graphic form. So for example, this wouldn't have to be animated, or it could be, but the trivia question could be presented as, if it takes you 25 yards to stop going 35 miles per hour on a dry road, how long would it take you to stop on a snowy road? And then we provide the options, and then the right answer becomes highlighted. And we use the concept of the football field because it's very American, but that is, we also talked about a soccer pitch or anything that might just like invoke a known distance to folks, because it's really hard to understand that concept when you're thinking about that going down the road. So this is just another way to potentially present those trivia questions. Any feedback so far on the stopping distance concepts? You guys are all awfully quiet, maybe shell-shocked.
No, I do like the fact that you're using a football field. It helps to understand for sure. It's funny when short distances up to 100, 150 feet, I always think of, I imagine in my mind, everyone's got their own way of doing it, but I imagine when I was in high school, I threw the discus. So I know how far it is when I throw a certain distance. It was like, so I can easily picture that. But when you talk about this kind of thing, yeah, you have to have that known quantity and how to sort of picture it. So I think it's a good way to do it for sure. Not that anyone's driving on a snowy football field, but it gets the message across.
Hi, this is Emil. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I've been having microphone trouble. No, I second Greg. This is actually, I think this is really good. This one, for people perception of distance, 25 to 60. I just wanted a little comment. Does that show 65 there in the panel number 4?
25 too. Yeah, 65.
25 and 65. The 25 is
Yeah.
correctly written there, but I think it's supposed to be 65.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did not truth or answer these correctly. We just put in random bars. So that was going to be the next step if do the math on it if it was selected. But thank you. That's helpful for us. Tom, I see or wait, Emil, do you have other comments on any of the other stopping distance themes or clear off your car themes?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I've been trying to, yeah, I've been having microphone problem. I guess, just, I didn't really, I wouldn't say dislike, but that, the, the ones that are showing the few minutes, what would you do? I don't see that connecting with me. The images or the story of, what would you do? You work on your phone or do something or, clean up your car. I don't think that, I personally don't think that will work. But other than that, the others are, I think, pretty good. I really like even the simple one that has the just the windshield. I think that works really well. That would work really well if done correctly. And I also like this one, like I said. So I guess so far that's my comment.
Okay, great, thank you. Tom, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, this is going to probably start getting into the wild ideas, but what prompted me on this thing, and I'm a very visual person too when it comes to this, is yes, I support the football field over any other outdoor field. I guess that's kind of the way I was raised. But that said, I started thinking, what about a hockey rink? What would the distances be relative to a hockey rink? And that's full of ice and everything. What about other things? Maybe what if we were able to compare it to the height of a building, popular building, Empire State Building, World Trade Center, those sorts of things. And what would those distances be equivalent to? Statue of Liberty, whatever. So it's not horizontal, but it's a comparative distance in terms of height of other things to get this point across. Just a thought.
Mhm.
You're not being too crazy. In one of my discussions with a coworker, she brought up blue whales, just because it gets people attention. It's like, what the heck? What blue whales? You just know they're big, so it's a big distance. So any ideas are welcome. I'll move on if there's no more comments.
Okay, so similar to the other themes, stopping distance has CMS messaging that was developed that again ties together the overall messaging for stopping distance. Again, I forgot to number these. I will do that in the revised version that's sent out. But again, winter conditions cause longer stopping distance, ice and snow, your stop is slow. So that's kind of a play on the ice and snow concept. When it snows, take it slow. See snow, go slow. See snow, drive slow. So these are just our ideas that would fit within what is allowed with some messaging. But again, any words could be used. So if you have ideas, feel free to share them.
And the one you've all been waiting for, don't crowd the plow. Work zone in motion. So again, building on previous messaging that's worked, but maybe as some people mentioned, has got old, like don't crowd the plow. If we provide the why, give some reasoning, increase that awareness of a safety concern. So tying it together with the bigger message. And then with our branding of the partnership in winter safety is what we're looking for here. And the idea of the work zone in motion, that while multitasking is discouraged while you're driving, that is what a plow driver pretty much has to do. What's a safe and effective operating speed, as to why they have to go the speed they go, and they're all operating multiple tools and activities similar to a work zone. So this one, very simple as a static. It's kind of been used in various ways in the past. We're looking at this one actually isn't as much of a storyboard as maybe options. As a static, would you want to see the different vehicles that are in the cloud, just a couple, or just ones that's staying out of the cloud? So we're just showing what we should have versus what we shouldn't have. Or it could be animated with the vehicles in the cloud and then backing off. And then in board 4, as part of the branding animation, we'd have the handshake that we talked about several meetings ago, of that partnership between the public and the winter maintenance operators and the agencies. And in the interest of time, I'll move on. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, no, that's fine. I was just going to say this, Greg. I was just going to say that I like number 1 because not only does it show it gives you a little bit more sense. You can see from the other ones how many cars can fit in there, but it's just almost another, hey, not only does the cloud go this far back, but that's how many cars it could actually impair the vision of. And don't, as a reminder, don't tailgate or don't get too close to the vehicle in front of you, let alone the plow itself. So I kind of like that first image. And I could also see that you could still put that partnership image up somewhere in the black space, maybe size down just a slight bit and still fit it in. So that's just my thoughts.
Thank you. Okay. So this one, focusing on the approach speed coming up from behind a plow to plows happily trucking along the road. Think of it as an animation again. So there'd be a background with the showing the sense of motion, and then whether we have the numbers up there or not with the 35 miles an hour. And then we have a car that comes in from behind showing the 65 miles an hour, and a similar graphic showing a reduction in speed, and then backing off. And if you can imagine this on number 3, where you have the please keep your distance, the text is squeezed together, then the animation would have it spreading out. And then with the phrase at the end, have a heart, do your part. And I think we have another one after that. It's the safe thing to do. And then we'd either finish off with branding and a full image, or the background that you can see right now on number 6 would be the same background that you would see, but in moving slowly as a background, animated background for that sense of animation. And another kind of add-on comment here on all of the plows here and the car are part of the branding colors in the partnership in winter road safety, where the plow in this graphic, just as an example, is more a traditional orange, that when we tried that orange in the logo, in the branding, it was too dark. Everybody wanted something a bit brighter. So if this is chosen, we don't have to make the decision now. If this is chosen, we'd have to consider which colors we use that's generic enough for other agencies. And then also one little consideration would be slide 5, you're seeing a total side-on view of the plow in the car, where in slide 6, we could do the animation and the graphic with slightly elevated, but it's still a side view. Unless anybody has a really strong opinion on that right now, that's something that could be discussed if it's chosen, or with other graphics. Okay, but the focus there was just coming in the speed differential and coming in at a higher speed. This one is another sequence, or it could be a static, where we're getting across more just the following distance in general, not to crowd the plow, and having initially the cars too close to each other and to the plow, then the phrase, it's your job to keep clear, or if that seems a little bit too harsh, help us do our job and keep clear, and then that increasing the following distance between the plow and other vehicles. And again, the choice of having the animated background or not, or kind of going back to your original comment, Greg, if you see this final graphic number 4, see that as a static graphic with nothing going on, that we're in this together, please keep a safe following distance, and then the branding, in the bottom corner or something. That could be a simple static graphic right there. Some people might call it an infographic or just a single static post on social media. I'll move on. Okay, this one is a little bit complex as we go through it, but I'll still try to be quick. The overall idea here is to stay out of the blind zone and for people to recognize where that blind zone is. So it could be done as a static infographic. The way we're presenting it here is more of a multi-image or visual, animated visual on one screen. So the first introduction would be the passenger vehicle, public vehicle point of view following a plow, with the introduction of these red areas that, being red, invoke the sense of maybe we shouldn't be here. There'd be a basic animation of trees passing by on the side so that we'd have that sense of motion. The second view is a isometric view, so basically an aerial view from the back, where that same car, that blue car, is in that red zone, and that we're not necessarily too happy about it, and there's a concern. 3 is the fact that we're now in the plow driver's view, and he has these big mirrors, and we're indicating them in red because he can't see anything. He doesn't know anybody's behind him. And so then on number 4, we combine those 3 views together. So they'd be in a simple animation of just moving along together in the not ideal situation. So then we move to the next one. This is essentially the same. The only difference is we're doing a side view versus the isometric view. So if we choose this, we'd also be choosing which view do you want, this isometric view or the side view. So they're essentially the same. And then we move on to the next, where having been in the red zone or in the blind zone or the blind spot, we're now happy because it's the car is it's not crowding the plow, it's out of the blind zone. This is what it would look like from a driver's perspective. And then, although they're not in the mirrors, the vehicle would be in the mirrors ideally. And again, if we chose this one, we'd go back and forth on how do we do the animation. And we would decide what realistically does it look like from a plow driver's perspective. So we're reasonably accurate here that yes, you can see it in one mirror, but you might not be able to see it in the other. So a little bit complicated to explain and view, but if pulled off, we would hope it would be a build-up of this animation to show each person's perspective, and that it is a partnership of what the drivers can see. Any comments on that?
So if you go back, the previous images, please. Yeah, and I think even one slide before that, was there? Yeah. So I think that for me, seeing the overhead view gives me better context of everything. So I like that overhead view of the blind zones a little bit better than the other one. And then, in fact, like even just down. So if you look at the slide 4, the image on the bottom left, and that's an image of a person, obviously with a face, emoji face. You can tell they're in the blind zone. But what's funny is the front of their, like the console with the hood, it cuts off the red, so it almost looks like it was a short red zone and it stops, and then they're okay. You know what I mean? And there's another image, I think, on the next set of slides, or the next slide over, that does that again somewhere. I thought I saw. Oh yeah, the number 1 there. That kind of looks like, because of the blue of the car, it kind of looks like the red zone ended, but clearly it didn't. I mean, if you take a little bit of time and think about it, it's like, no, you're in the red. That guy's in the red zone, but
Okay.
Anyway, just my initial thought.
That's really good, and it brings a couple of those detailed questions up that I was avoiding, because it's more like if it was chosen. So we did the blue car,
Yeah.
and I know this isn't the view that you prefer. I'll go to the. So we've got the blue car from the exterior, and I didn't know if the blue car from the interior helps identify that, but you bring up a really good point. So number one, would we keep the car blue, or would we just do a gray interior and we would get rid of that blue hood on the car? Or, yeah, so that's a good detail to bring up. I think we would resolve it, hopefully, if we moved forward as an animation. Does that
Yeah.
kind of
I
address
think you're right.
your
I
point?
think you're exactly right. When it flows together as an animation, I'm sure it would be very clear. Yeah.
Okay. One, the drawing of this isometric is a little bit more complicated, a little bit harder to animate, but we would do it. When it becomes the picture in picture, so we've got these three pictures all on one screen at the same time, it is harder to fit that isometric in there, which is why we did do the side view. So again, we'd have to try to accommodate that, and we'd maybe have to zoom out the plow, this isometric view, to be able to get the size and scale of that, how big that blind zone is. But again, we would address that in production.
Mhm.
So if we're okay, I'll move on.
For me,
And there isn't
yeah,
much.
thanks.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. So then here we are literally talking about the work zone in motion. And so we would introduce this with some typical images of what we expect to see in a work zone. And it would just be like a motion carousel of images sliding by, so that we get a good view of them. And then we'd say, and how about a snow plow? Well, it's got some of the same things going on. And so we put the cones around the plow. And if chosen, we'd be discussing what kinds of cones we would use, where the cones would be in terms of what makes more sense from a viewer's perspective. Would it be on the other side of the plow? So the plow's driving on the right side. We can discuss that. But then we'd combine the two, that we've got this plow doing its work. It's doing a variety of activities similar. And what do we do in the work zones? Hopefully we slow down. So just bringing those two perspectives together. And then also the perspective that we've got fathers, mothers, sons, daughters out here working on the road. Well, the same with a plow driver. And so, yeah. And then potentially as part of that, we would add on the sense of the variable message signs. And I know some plows actually have the sign on the back of slow down, keep your distance. And so we wouldn't necessarily animate that on the plow, but have them up in the air, similar to the, oops, sneak preview there, similar to the images above the plow here. So we would continue that theme. So that's the more literal work zone in motion kind of animation, or static infographic.
Any thoughts on this one? Do you like it? Do you not like it? No comment? Okay. Feel free.
I've got one. We also have trouble getting people to drive respectfully in our work zones. So I'm a little worried about the effectiveness of this messaging.
Noted.
Okay.
I'll add one thing, I guess. Sorry, guys, I'm late to the game today, but just I keep thinking that keep having issues with our wing trucks and snow plows. I'd like to, in our imageries, or if we can, and sometimes associate some wings with it, or just know there's other things on the trucks. They're just not that slim at times. Visually, I don't know if that's been brought up, but my 2 cents.
It has not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is a good point, and as we develop these, taking that into consideration, and it's part of what we've mentioned And I won't flick back to the slide where we say that the driver is multitasking and saying that they're doing the equivalent of grading a road, they're spreading solids, they're spreading liquids. And so, yeah, it's a good idea to stay away, similar to, or keep your distance and slow down. So, okay.
Thanks.
All right, this concept is a bit different, but just a different approach to that internal feeling of, if you don't like to be crowded when you're in a bus or in a subway, or if you don't like being crowded when you're in an office trying to get your work done, or even in a playground, or if a janitor is trying to do their job and they're getting crowded with kids running down a hallway or something, why would you want to crowd a plow that's trying to safely do its job going down the road? So it's a little bit of one of those out of the box thinking ideas. And obviously, would take some thought in developing the visuals, and we would, take the time to create. There's a limitation in how we can use stock images, and so what could we create, and have to get permissions and things. So there would be some production time to do this if we feel like it's a concept. And obviously, somebody doing their own personal social media has a lot more flexibility in what they can use to create a funny kind of "don't crowd me" social media post. But because we're doing this essentially for DOT agencies, there are limitations. But we like the concept. If you do, then we can pursue it.
Tom, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, the thing that wouldn't leave. Two points. I think this is pretty important to get the message across about, in essence, why crowd the plow. Two ideas I had. Number one, you showed those previous slide. You showed some other images too. I always like to tell people, a plow truck loaded up with material is like basically a tank on the road. This is the civilian equivalent of a tank. Would you want to run into a tank? That kind of a thing. And then the second point has to do with, we all agency wise have tremendous crash photos of vehicles, even semis, impacting a plow truck. And the plow truck usually doesn't lose. Might get shoved off the road, but it usually doesn't lose compared to the other vehicles. And maybe that gets the point across too, as graphic as it might be. It's two thoughts.
That's a good comment for the group as a whole, and Greg, in terms of, if that idea was pursued, then the time and energy to get photos from agencies and make sure we have that clearance that was mentioned earlier. If there are faces, license plates, or anything that needs to be cleared or blurred, and that we have permission to use and distribute these images as part of social media. So it's a definite possibility, but some of the production time and effort is taken in finding those resources from the agencies and then making sure we have the rights to use them.
Also, just my 2 cents. I know that folks in my area would clock a non-local image. So that might be true for other people as well. They might be able to clock that that's not a plow from your agency, or the background doesn't look like where you're from. So
yes, and that is a good comment as we move forward, of trying to be generic enough, and why we've done animations that could be generic versus showing a Montana plow all the time, because that's where I've taken most of my pictures, versus getting those images from other places, or creating a template, which is easiest with the statics, to say, put your plow in this graphic. If we provide the Illustrator files for people to be able to, for agencies to create their own.
So the other thing I wanted to
Sorry.
say is, you're good. so Tom had mentioned a couple ideas, and I think that's right in line with, and I don't want to speak for Dave Gray necessarily, but based on previous discussions, other meetings we were in here, Dave was kind of looking for a little bit of that shock value, because he has the feeling that that's the only way that the message is truly going to get across. And what Tom is suggesting seems to be in line with kind of what Dave was talking about too, you know. And so if there is a way to make that work, you know, with some of the things you're just discussing, licensing and things like that, I think that would be something that, I know he's not in on this meeting, and I don't know how many he'll be able to be on in the future, but being the project chair and the originator of this idea, that was something that he was absolutely interested in pursuing.
So I kind of want to open up the floor for a second. I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I know that there are some strong feelings on what people want to see, but versus what is actually effective. And so I know that Neil actually went and worked and sat down with folks at the Center for Health and Safety and talked with them specifically about how to effectively message. And he mentioned it earlier that you don't want to shame people, but you can present what not to do in the solution. So if you guys want us to go shock and awe, we can, for example, what Tom suggested, show a whole bunch of graphic images of crashes. But to the greater audience, that doesn't necessarily resonate.
I know the stories, I've never operated a snow plow or anything, but the stories I keep hearing about from plow operators and dealing with traffic in general, and then what they've come across, some cases, people's lives they've saved, not impacting the plow truck, but because of their own driver behavior in the winter. And then also when they have had collisions or crashes occurred. I mean, if you took a survey from that group, I'd sound pretty mild right now. So,
And
it's what the whole group needs to look at.
Having seen some webinars and videos where there are individual plow drivers, you know, the guys on the road, it makes a lot of sense. But one of the challenges we have as a group trying to create something that's generic, that it was kind of, it wasn't absolutely turned down, but that idea of interviewing different plow drivers, excuse me, from different agencies. We make a production, but then it's like, as the lady said earlier, if it's not local or even state specific, then it doesn't really get the message across. Like, oh yeah, that's because it's in Colorado, but we're in Utah, or you know, we're in Minnesota, and that's Colorado. So it's definitely worth considering if we need to go back to that. But then we'd have to address that. How do we be generic enough or cover those differences? One perspective would be to try and get that national perspective or a broader perspective in one message, and say it doesn't really matter where you're from. If it's Colorado, Minnesota, New York, or even California, you know, we still have this same problem. People are driving too fast, they're crowding the plow, and this can happen. And with the shock and awe, it's okay to show the damage. You know, we don't want to go into the human injury side necessarily, because our imagination is good enough for that. But to show the crashes as this is a safety concern, and saying that none of these people thought they were going to get into this crash when they set out this morning. You know, how about you? Do you think you're going to get into a crash? You know, and you know, make it a personally attached story. So we don't have to stay away from it completely, but try to do it in not just the Hollywood shock and awe approach.
Yeah, it's interesting because we just had another snow event yesterday in the Twin Cities, actually all of Minnesota. Not a lot of snow fell, but the conditions got bad and into the evening and overnight. in the Twin Cities metro area, over 500 crashes, 2 fatalities, kind of the first of the year deal, and people driving way beyond what they should have been. They thought they were okay with a light snowfall, but it glazed up enough and the temperatures on the pavement were, cold enough. It turned it into skating rinks before the crews could get out there with enough treatment. Um, you know, you learn a number of ways, I guess.
So I think that's where there might need to be a discussion specific to, number one, are we hitting the bases here with what we're presenting? And there was a couple more to present. Or is there that conflict between trying to do something that's generic while also, I mean, the statistics that you just mentioned there, that to me would be an immediate post by a DOT to send out to news agencies of, okay, the first snowfall this year, and guess what? Are we prepared or not? Plows, the roads got plowed, but we had this many accidents and these fatalities. It's a very important message to get across. Is it one, though, that we can do in these kind of longer term campaign messaging? So I'm not saying no, we shouldn't. That's the only part I'm trying to convey.
Yeah, I would recommend, Greg's already mentioned this a number of times. You want to get input from David. He was the champion of this effort. And I have to admit that we in Minnesota, like other states, they do their own thing regardless of what Clear Roads is going to put out. And that's certainly our case. Therefore, the need for this project to go forward from the Clear Roads perspective, I didn't feel was that high of a priority compared to some other things for Minnesota. That said, I'm going to participate to the best of my knowledge. I had offered to have our communications person be part of a member on this, but she just didn't have enough time. But she's done quite a bit of contributing on some questions that have been coming in as well. And so, I think what maybe the real approach here is we want to fill one more gap of information, because obviously this was a need that some people identified and put on, and really getting back to the original champion, and then anyone else, Greg, that you can think of would probably be real appropriate. It's going to be one more tool in the toolbox, as they've said. The quote is, I guess.
That's a great perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, I get a little nuts this time of days too. So
it might be,
trying
to
just rush through the last ones.
Let's do that. I think we want to try and get as much in here as we can, because it's being recorded and that's going to go out to other people to make sure that they see the whole thing. I want them to see you go through it.
Okay. So we won't read through all of these. If you're okay with that, Laura, it's on the screen. It's been recorded. Just more additional messaging ideas. And there were quite a few. Same idea with the trivia questions as we've discussed previously, that any of these could be developed as part of a package, static or motion. Repetition of the idea of the CMS, VMS messaging, that I think Laura says she's going to number them so it's easier to provide review on. And then this guy here, I shouldn't make it gender specific. This plow here, one thought was to have a large printout of a plow with the windshield cut out so that people could hold it up, whether it's kids, and have pictures taken saying, this is why we shouldn't crowd the plow, or this is why we stay at a safe distance or speed. The graphic I drew was more like a illustrative graphic versus a cartoony style. It could also just be printed out and somebody could hold it to the side with a message written on it. So just a different approach. We'd mentioned it previously, and there seemed to be some interest in it. So we just put it out there. And then these are more details that we can discuss if there's any, or when things are chosen. So that's the completion of the presentation. I'll finish on the plow.
I
Okay.
think this
Okay.
cloud
Yeah,
needs a
go.
wing.
Sorry,
It
I
needs a wing
interrupted you.
plow.
Needs a wing. Okay.
Sorry, was there a comment?
I think she said needs a wing plow on slide 54. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you like the concept of whether it's like a large stand-up poster or a coloring sheet?
I mean, we have some of that stuff already, so I don't know how much utility we would have for that. We have some activity books that we've made for our agency. I also don't know where a poster would go. Maybe at our DMVs, but
Yeah, so we were thinking this could be used like in the context of actually creating content. So for example, we could take it to a conference or a meeting, and you could actually have plow drivers, have the windshield cut out and have them hold it up and say, I want to get home safe, or, I'm busy controlling the vehicle as I'm driving. Please help me get home safe. Something like that. Well, what is their why, essentially?
I'll just echo that what Elaine said. I guess Ellen said that. I know I probably would highly recommend not using this if it doesn't have the equipment that we have, like a wing on it. So that's just our statement. I know a lot of people don't use that kind of equipment, but we would probably use our own graphic. So I don't know if I would have much input then.
So having seen all of the general ideas and having had the discussion about maybe we need to kind of bring in some of those shock and awe concepts, I will obviously already mentioned get you a revised version of this with some numbering and whatnot, but are there any that come to the top as for sure we really like this idea for you, or no, scrap it? I'm what I'm getting from you is this slide with the graphic image of the plow is not resonating. So we maybe scrap that idea. And those are the comments individually. If you could put those on that Excel file, that would help us, because then we can say, oh, only 2 people didn't like this, but everybody else did, or something like that. So we can come up with a list moving forward. No other feedback, no other thoughts?
Somebody else put something in the chat. Is there a specific age range, gender that you have found? Natalie asked that.
Can you
Natalie and I were back and forth about some statistics.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I don't want to hold people. It's been the full hour and a half. So thank you for your time. I will send out a detailed email with our ask with this information. Please take some time, go through the presentation again, put your thoughts in the Excel file, give us a call, talk to Greg, whatever you need to do to kind of work through your thought process of what you like and don't like. And you could, again, like Neil mentioned, you could say, I really like slide, for example, 45. I like or 46. I like the use of a variable message as a graphic, but I want it in a different one. We want you guys to use your creative ideas as well. So let us know what you think, and we'll see what we can get moving forward.
All right, well, I appreciate it, and I apologize for slowing things down a little bit, but this is so much information, it was hard to sort of organize and present to us. I understand the challenge there, and I just want you guys to know I appreciate it, and I'll make sure I work to get a hold of David so that he gives his feedback to you because I know that's going to be valuable for you guys to receive.
So yeah, so Greg, I will follow up with you with the presentation, the Excel file, and the meeting notes, so that hopefully,
Okay.
and then hopefully we can attach the meeting recording link to that, or if you have that in the members
Yep.
page, that way folks can move
Yep.
forward. That would be great.
Yep,
Thank
I'll
you.
do that for sure. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Okay, any questions or comments before folks need to go?
Nope, none for me.
All right, well, thank you for folks that chimed in. I really appreciate it, and great job, Neil. And I guess we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thanks
Thank
everyone
you.
for your patience and input.
All right, bye, everyone.
You bet. Bye.